Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Section 5, generate your leads. This is the fun stuff. We've created our mission, our vision, our values, our belief systems, our perspective. All of those things are constant and never-ending improvement. We've worked on our value proposition and we will continue to work on the value proposition. Generating your leads here today. My most favorite part. This is like more nitty-gritty than how we've been doing it. Real estate experts. Check. Now under lead generation, there's 4 categories we'll be covering this week and next. It's generating your leads, grow your database, capture leads with open houses, capture leads with social media, and capture more leads, right? If you notice on there, we're gonna find ways to grow our business. Veronica, you might be jumping in with us on some of the database aspect and some feedback there. And anything that's worked for you guys or things that resonate, feel free to raise your hand, jump in. This is more of like a mastermind discussion. And also everyone on Zoom too. Casey, John, hey, John Tran, right on. Christopher Martinez, Erica Thompson, everyone on there with us. Feel free to chime in as well. Today we're going to be covering the lead generator, the lead generation model, your sphere of influence, expanding your sphere of influence, lead generation best practices, recaps, and ahas. Haha. All right. My fear of failure was greater than my fear of lead generating. That's Gary Keller. Any thoughts on that before we move forward?
They're afraid of wasted potential.
Absolutely. But what's a fear of failure? Like when you think of failure, what is failure to you? Like in experience, or what would that look like for you if you failed?
Failing to not pursue, my goals with real estate and making it my career, so that I can achieve the things that I want to for myself and my family.
There you go.
That's a failure for me.
Yeah.
Because I told myself this is it, and this is it.
And going back, you would say that there's more pain in that failure than there is pain in picking up the phone, making
Yes.
contacts.
100%.
Absolutely.
Knowing you didn't give it your all, that would like be more painful than.
Yes, or
Trying.
allowing that other person on the other end telling me, stop calling me. Or stop, like get me off your list or whatever.
1000% agree.
Yeah.
Something on that note, on that thread, I think of failure for me, and I've lived it, was constantly going to my mom to support our family.
Yeah.
That was like, oh, as a man, that was just like, that hurt. And at that point we had 2 kids. So it wasn't, she was already supporting my brother and her family in the Philippines and Ozzy herself and then our family. I mean, it was like a never ending like beehive around her. And that was my failure, right? That wasn't her fault. That wasn't the government's fault. That wasn't my company's fault that I worked for at the time. That was my fault. So being able to say, oh, well, if this is failure for me, what's picking up the phone to call people about real estate goals and needs and stuff like that. Good to see Moj. Yeah, so
Hey, everyone.
hey, everyone, Moj.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So digging deep, sometimes Tony Robbins calls it the pain of regret, the pain of failure being so great that whatever the activity is to get you closer to your goal, whether it's prospecting or following up with somebody or whatever it is, making that connection, it's like, oh, that's so much way easier. Like I will walk down the street, knock all these doors, knowing that if I just got one deal out of it, all of this pain just kind of subside. Maybe not totally, but you know what, I'll be further along on that path. And originally some of my fear of lead generating was like, oh, do I really need to like call my family and friends? I was so fearful of what they would say, I actually started making cold calls, which again is a weird place of sourcing your pain, right? I did all the things I'm telling you to do, I did the reverse. I started with cold calls because I was worried about what my family and friends would think of me. And you guys probably heard the story. The moment I started calling my sphere, a couple months into it, because I hadn't closed the deal yet, at that point, some activity, but nothing like what people were saying or coaching on. I found out my cousin bought a house with her coworker, and that was my failing. That wasn't her fault. It's not their thing to remember that we're in real estate. It's not their priority. You know, when they need something, whoever's one or two in their mind, they're gonna go get it, right? So it's our job to do that. So definitely keeping that failure in mind. Now it's like, my gosh, if we ever fall apart, do I go back to my mom? Like, no way. We're just gonna figure this out, be consistent in our activities and mindset, and keep going. Anyone on Zoom would like to chime in on that? Are you guys good? 3, 2, 1. Awesome. All right, the 6 core competencies of a business, and this is the one rule of 6 that we highlighted earlier. 1, lead generate, capture and convert to appointments, present to buyers and sellers and get agreements, show buyers and market sellers, write and negotiate contracts, coordinate the sale to closing, manage the money. Maybe we should call it the one rule of 7 and kick in practice. But these are the 6 areas of a competent business. And some of this, quite honestly, as you grow your business, if you manage your money, you'll be able to leverage yourself a lot more faster, right? Because a lot of times, once we figure out what our expenses are, you know, you don't have to make $500,000 all of a sudden and say, hey, I'm gonna hire an assistant, right? Like if your expenses are, I'm just gonna say 10,000, right? And you're consistently doing business that's providing 5x, 10x that amount. Well, awesome. Maybe you don't have to wait till you're a multimillionaire to start building a team. You can leverage out parts of the business up front. For example, let's see here, coordinate the sale to closing. That's really just a transaction coordinate as a per sale situation. Buyers, present to buyers and sellers an agreement, show buyers and market sellers. Showing the number 3 aspect can really be done with a showing assistant and a virtual assistant. Right, you can really train your VA to work on marketing the seller's aspect of the home on a lot of automated items. And showing buyers could be something as simple as bringing on a showing assistant or a buyer's agent and working that avenue of the business. The big one that resonated for me is managing the money. Jim Rohn talks about start when the amounts are small, right? When the amounts are like your first commission check after paying your split, mentor, and it's like, you know, for me, the first check was $4,500, and that was like $1 million at the time. Like, oh my God, we're getting off a wick, you know. So I had a fun one with that first check. But you know, did I set aside 10%? No. Did I set aside 10% for tax? No. Did I set aside money for like next month? No. It was just all right into the checking account, right back into life. Right? As opposed to, oh, cool, I should have taken $400 for profit, $400 for taxes, $400 for owner's compensation, and the rest. Okay, now let's see how we can fit this in. Oh yeah, we do have to pay these bills. What else can we do to reinvest back into our business? Right? Or it would have been like, oh wow, I don't have enough to cover my bills after setting aside these 3. I better get my butt back onto lead generating. As opposed to waiting for the account to go back to 0, and then I got my butt back into lead generating when I realized, oh my God, you got to close more deals. So those are just things that if you start when they're smaller, when you do get the $150,000 a month, the $80,000 a month, now it's not like, hey, let's just go nuts. It's like, cool, we got a game plan. 8,000 goes here, 8,000 goes there, 16 goes there. Wow, we have a surplus of $45,000. Great, let's buy a house with that, or whatever. Set up our emergency fund. Now you're overproducing on what you need and what you need to set aside. But it's hard to do that, believe me. You get these waves of income coming in, you haven't done it with $100 or with $1,000. Mentally, you think, oh, I'm just gonna keep making this. And it doesn't always pan out that way. You know, you might go high and you go low. Hopefully this makes sense for people on Zoom. But again, with that first check coming in or whatever check that you get now going forward, have a game plan for that money.
I have to tell you, because this is a perfect commercial for my next class.
Please, yeah, buyers chime in.
The lesson of my next class is how to turn more renters into buyers, and it's financial planning oriented. And it's really about the fact that you have to do it mindfully and you have to have a plan, otherwise your finances will just be a mishmash mess.
Oh yeah, it's like just total lost in the desert.
Yeah.
Until like, oh wow, I met somebody who can guide me out of it.
Yes.
That's huge. Sorry, I'm hitting hard on the money aspect. It's just, you know, we are in the money business. I mean, this is real estate. Even when the market changes, the opportunity just kind of flips over to a different aspect, but we're still there. Lead generation fears and myths. I think lead generation is really difficult. I don't have time to lead generate. I don't know what to say. I'm afraid of making mistakes, right? Those are just some myths. And then let's go on. So I do that, but click the other button. Now here's the ways over it. When I think of lead generation is really difficult, I was confusing effort with enjoyment. Lead generation is actually easy, it's just not fun. Right? I mean, it's just a flip of a mental shift. I don't have time to lead generate. I had an issue of making time to lead generate and protect that time. Right? Literally, if you look at a Google Calendar spread, it's like, oh, there's so much white space. If all you did was attend training and pick up your kids from school. Right? There's like so many in between white blank spaces you could fill in an hour here, an hour there, 4 hours if you must.
Or no kids,
You
it's
know.
even bigger.
My
kids for-
Hey!
Hey!
Oh, but you know,
Come
again,
and pick me up.
well, you know, on that note, you know, I saw my mom's planner. This is a record, she'll never watch these, but she actually had on her phone like her little planner, and it was like she blocked time for going on dates. I was like,
Your
whoa,
mama and
Mom.
me might have something in common. I don't have time to-
Yeah, and I'm thinking,
I love
does she
that.
have that many dates, or is it just like, you know, like same person? What's going on, Mom? But no, because she sent me, so she sent me this calendar to
cute.
say when she has her work schedule, and then when she's free to like have kids over. And I just scrolling through, and I was like,
So which has more priority? The date or you guys?
oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, but her weekends are usually open, but then there's like this
Cute.
this DN thing. I was like, oh, it stands for date night. It's like, oh, thank God it was like PG, right? I don't know what to say. I had to get on the path of mastering the dialogue skills needed in the business. The path to mastery, right? That, you know, it's kind of tough sometimes to stay online and practice on Zoom. I think Veronica and Brenda, I've heard Alan has some role play partners that I thought he was setting an appointment. He was actually role playing. I was like,
Many
dude,
times.
get it, man, that's awesome. You're asking me all the questions. But you know, having whatever that is for practice, for me, it's one-on-one with myself before 7:30. I get here, I'm coming right off of, I call it Fight Club. So I'm on my podcast on the way here. The moment I check in, I have my binder. I go through my prayer, affirmations, and then the role play of the day. And it's just a read through as if you're an actor or actress reading a script at the table, right? Can I improve that? Absolutely. It's just after 7:30, I just want to get right into calendaring, preparation, getting right into the thick of things. So yeah, definitely I can improve on that too. I'm afraid of making mistakes. I found that lead generation is nothing more than interesting than a set of skills of tasks and skills that are well documented. I think that's failing forward. What do you guys think when it comes to I'm afraid of making mistakes? Thinking of that as, oh gosh, well, that didn't apply to this situation, right? Or maybe there's a better way of doing things.
Saying the wrong thing, fear of saying the wrong thing,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Asking a question that I don't
yeah,
on the spot.
Mhm.
feeling like you have to answer it.
And I feel like I'm so much better in person having conversations than on the phone. But when I'm in person, I blah, 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 at open house, I can talk like. That's true, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Christine can talk at an open house. Right, but you love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, that's part of the,
Yeah,
that's part of it.
And you know, it's funny when you have a conversation like this, Kurt, you know, when you're doing something in here, like I, you know, did an open house with Kurt. And he like was shining, you were shining talking about, because it's a totally different area that he, you know, he has expertise in than me. And so he was giving addresses and things and I'm like, and I was very impressed. Remember when those guys came in? I thought it was really good. And but the conversation, like, you know, I don't know where you pulled all that out, but you did.
That's awesome. That's a superpower, by the way. I don't know if you guys were here for
Right?
Stephanie Young's.
I'm just so lucky that I
Melissa.
wasn't
Melissa
lucky,
Young,
but
there you
like,
go.
Hey, but
they
you know
said
what?
Englewood,
Things that
and
we
they said those
under
places, driving to,
Right,
yeah,
so you
so I
just
did
know,
that.
right?
Oh yeah, and you pull that out. You know, some of us can do it. Some of us find other ways to connect with others and grow. I think most of us here are pretty proficient at open houses. I know you two are. You know,
We're
so-
person, like you're saying, Christina, talking to people, when it comes to the phone, it's like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm scared, yeah.
I'm not scared of people I already have a connection with. I can talk to anybody, but if
Yeah.
it's like a cold call or somebody
Yeah.
that like asking like,
Olivia, we get sign calls now, and now because we've been like blasting them out there, we're also getting like internet calls and all that stuff. And it's interesting because a lot of times they call frustrated,
Mhm.
like off the bat. Like most realtors, we're not answering our phones, we're not returning calls. Some of the numbers that people are calling on signs come up as spammers, so I really don't call them back, right? Shame on me. Some of them are actual leads.
they're calling you.
They're calling us, right? So I'm calling them back and finding out, hey, how may we help? And they sound frustrated in the sense that they're not able to get to where they want to be. And really what it is, they just haven't had a consultation. You know, we haven't gone deep on goal setting or whatnot. Now this is you and your sphere of influence. If for those online and those here, think of this as you, and then the people around you is your core group. And we'll go a little deeper into this. Your core group is who you identified as maybe your top 25. And your top 25 who could be people that no matter what you're doing in life, they're going to support you. You know, immediately in that circle, when I started with my wife, my mom, my mother-in-law, my aunt, my cousin, my brother, it was a pretty wide group. And shame on me, I didn't call. I started with the outside of that circle, people who were just in the general public. So again, I'm going to talk from experience of failure, but just for food for thought, think of that top 25, which we did prior for homework. I think, you know, Jessica did it, Rachel did it. You guys even called your top 25 and all that fun stuff. Now, this is a sphere of influence income opportunity. And we're just going to use this for example. You can manipulate this later, and I'll show you KW, the CGI calculator, right? But this is like the old school or really the on pen and paper way of doing it. But let's say you have a number of contacts in your phone, 250. If you have a potential closing rate of that's 8% closing rate, that's 20, that'll come from this 250, potential referrals from your database, another 25, a total potential of 45 deals. Now this is where it's a little different, right? If your average commission is 5,000, if you were taking like a referral fee off of 45 deals, or that was genuinely your average commission, your total net income opportunity or total gross income opportunity would be $225,000. Now adjust that for our market, say even $15,000. Now you're somewhere in the ballpark of $675,000. And I truly feel like you would be doing way more deals than 45 at that point, right? I don't even think our average would be 15, it'd be a little bit higher. But this is just an example of the opportunity sitting there. It's almost kind of the same way when we look at a farm list. Right, I don't know any of the 250 people on that list, but there's something in my mind that says, man, I can list one home in there, right, and make $25,000. Well, at one point I started flipping the script. I was like, well, you know, I've got like 1,000 people on my cell phone, right, and I'm constantly hearing, like when you see these big teams show what their business pie chart looks like, less than 5% were coming from for sale by owners and expireds. Right, the only teams that were truly true to life expired for sale by owner was like the Jim Sandoval team for Park Regency, and at one point Eric Delgado's business model was built all around that. But outside of those two, and Angel Garcia, so outside of those three outliers, the majority of people who I saw speak on a national level who said, hey, I've been doing this business for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Here are the members of our team who are also making $1 million within our structure. All of them were working some sort of meaningful database. Now they added to it open houses, micro farms, geographic farms. They just kept adding former coworkers. They added, extended networks, and they grew that base. But overall, it was this consistent follow-up with the people on that database system, right? Your SOI database, any ahas on that, on anything we've covered so far?
I can share something.
Sure.
I think for going back to like making the calls or cold calls, this is what I used to do, but I think that one thing that I think about is, oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess up what I say, that I'm gonna lose the opportunity to like work with this potential person if he chooses to sell or buy. But the way I think about it now is that it's actually gonna prepare me for the next person, that whoever I do get in touch with who is ready and like my scripts are on point, then it's gonna be like, okay, that was meant to be for that person.
Absolutely.
That's gonna be someone that's gonna, buy or sell with me. And then I can come back and continue to build that rapport with the first person, for example, that I called that I messed up. And he's like, no, bye.
You know something, you never say the wrong thing to the right person,
Yeah.
right? You guys heard this story, my first calls were cold calls. I would leave messages and the voicemail went something like, hi, this message for Robert. My name is Philip with KW Porter Ranch or KW North Valley at the time. The reason for my call is we have a client who is selling their home and maybe thinking, or we have a client selling their home, and I was curious to find out if you were thinking of buying our client's home in Reseda. Please call me back at 818-635-6743. So I had the listing, it was an actual listing, that was a sphere listing, by the way, but the cold calls that were working for me was when I called not about their house, but about another client's home, and it was a move up opportunity. So my team leader at the time, God bless her, Dulce, she said, hey, you should call people who would be moving up into Reseda. So, okay, got a farming list for Pacoima, right? Pacoima, Arleta, the Northeast Valley. And I called all the condos there, and the guy picks up and says, hey, or he says he got my voicemail or answering machine message. He said it was a call, a sign from God that I called and left a message.
Oh.
And this is a sign, because I've been asking myself, hey, the home's appreciated. This is 2015. Should I sell? What should I do? And yeah, I don't want to move to Reseda, but if you can help me, I'll sell my home and buy another house. That happened a couple of times. People actually heard the message. It was that less than 30 seconds, less than a minute, and they called back,
And I email campaign people all the time, and it's usually a thoughtful one. It's not just, blind one. Then I get all these calls out of the blue from these old clients who like all of a sudden have a situation they want to talk to me about. And I'm like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, and think about this, the FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, okay, where's the opportunity for someone who's like, wow, the interest rates are going to 7%, this is crazy. And it's still a deal. If you quote someone at 5.9 or 5.7, it's still awesome. Because it beats out rent. John Tran, who's on here, I think it was John, and chime in and out if it were you or if it wasn't you, but you put a post up that said, hey, interest rates are what, 6%, whatever it is, it still beats 100% of what you pay on rental, on a rental ask or place. 1000% right. Ben Acosta said the same, said something similar a while back. He hashed it out there. I was like tempted to screenshot and reshare. And I was like, oh, I'll probably go back and do it later. But it was one of those that is total genius. What's rent in our area? $4,000. What does it take to rent a house here in Calabasas? $6,000, $7,000. Or an awesome house, not a condo. Condo, yeah, maybe 2,500 to 5,000. But even then, to that point. So there we go. Lead generation model. Now this is right out of the MREA. Now this looks like crazy talk, but this is like how my brain kind of factors this. You start up here, you capture your lead, right? And before I even get into this whole cylinder, this is where we fortunately and unfortunately live all the time, right? Without a database system, we're constantly calling to find who's ready right this moment. Who did I call at the right time in their life that they're going to list their home with me or get pre-approved or maybe be pre-approved already and then work with me on buying a home. It's a great thing because there's no way around this. This must be done. But to Jessica's point, how do we follow up with them? What is the mechanism that says, hey, Philip wasn't ready on May 4th because he was watching Star Wars all day, but let me put a reminder to follow up with them on May 11th or June 4th when, hey, maybe life will happen and I happen to call at the right time. Otherwise, we forget about the Philip and the Cindy and the Brenda and the Veronicas that we call who weren't ready at that time, but they're going to be ready later on, right? And it almost seems like luck when we call and find that, shoot, they are ready, right? To be a little bit more purposeful in order to maybe get closer to hitting our goal, we have a database. So however we capture them. They answer an email, they answer an ad, they pick up the phone, we met them at the door, we met them at an open house, they're on our sphere. We transport them into some sort of meaningful database. From leads, we form relationships. From leads and contacts, we form relationships, strengthen existing relationships. So in the lead, so you have two sectors, right? You have your contacts, people you already put in there, and you have leads, people that we're building relationships with, however we capture them. 3, we cultivate contacts for conversion, interactive, and needs-based offerings. So that's kind of the Cindy's point. It's not just a throwaway email. It might be just a touch-base email, it might be a purpose. We might have to use HomeBot as our touch-base operation system. But something that brings value to them. And it might just be a phone call. Like, hey, you just learned something new about rates. Hey, you just learned something new about finances. So we're not CPAs, we always let people know that. This is some valuable information that I thought of you. Yeah, it doesn't apply to most of our clients, unfortunately, but the state of California is releasing the 10% grant for first-time home buyers. When you read about it though, please read about it because not everyone qualifies. It's 80% of the median income for that area. So if they consider the area to be LA County, the median income for a 2-person household is like $64,000. So they have to be making $51,000 in order to qualify for the 10. They basically eliminate themselves from being able to buy in the valley, right, as a first-time home buyer. So you got to read into that a bit more. But however, it's still a valuable conversation to have with somebody, and that's the needs base. And then you get new repeat referrals, and then guess what? Those clients that we close on go right back into our database system, that ecosystem, that environment, that world that we build around them. For those who've read part of the MREA, like the biggest you can have in that book is that you want to be the number 1 or number 2 person in mind when someone thinks of real estate. So if I'm in your database, EV, and all of a sudden I'm hanging out on Mother's Day with my mom, and she's like, "Hey, Philip, you know, I don't want to burst your bubble. I'm thinking of selling my house, but I want to enjoy the money with my boyfriend." That sucks, you know. I'm throwing my mom under the bus, but you know, but if you were to say something like that, and I'm not a realtor, who would I think of? Right? There's going to be someone, 1 or 2 that you can know, IQ real estate, you know. So it's like, you know, awesome. I think of you. I'm like, oh hey, maybe I should call Evie and Brittany, or hey mom, here's her number, or however they connect. And there you go. That's a referral, right? Maybe you call me at the right time, or maybe you're touching base. Maybe I got your mailers or your text messages or whatever it is. But it's something that just triggers. That's the genius of farming. That as annoying as it can be for certain homeowners and people who live in the community, it's like, oh, they know Mike Galliotti or whoever the farmer is, right? They know Randy DeSimone. They know Matt Horn. They know the person because the flyer just constantly comes in. They're top of mind, right? And then that's where the database, even if you're not using a mailing system, even if you're not doing auto emails, if you can at least even call them twice a year and have social media, I know they're not, I don't think we're covering social media today, but if all you did was like 2 phone calls a year to your top 200 people within the database, and meaningful social media where you're just kind of got at least as many of those contacts on Facebook and Instagram. So an absolute minimum, I'm just talking from our experience, you're going to be able to create anywhere between 20 to 50 deals from a small group of people. I mean, we've got 4,000 and we haven't touched them all. Yeah, maybe they got an auto blast email from Josh or Cyberbacker VA. Maybe they're just starting to get HomeBot. They're just starting to get the send out cards for their birthdays and their home anniversaries. We're just starting to build that machine. But prior to that, all of it for us was 2 phone calls a year, social media. Repeat that cycle. So that's a basic kind of rudimentary one that with no cost, right? We paid whatever was E-Edge, I think that was $25. KW Command, which we're still paying $25 for a way more robust system. Any thoughts on this before we go forward? We could end the meeting here, but there's still more to cover. Okay, good deal. Prospecting and marketing, we're gonna dive deeper on lead generation activities that deliver leads into your business. And again, that is all the things we covered: open house, calling your cell phone, doing surveys, going to network meetings, mining your social media pages, to going through that. Prospecting versus marketing. So this is another one where I'll hear people, is he on here? Monty. No, Monty's not on here. Okay. So I love Monty. And when I first met him, he lived right around here, marketing, and he's a genius because it took me years to finally figure this out, and he figured this out like in 3 weeks. Now the prospecting though is where I spend most of my time intensive, proactive, immediate results, versus marketing, long-term results, passively money intensive, right? So you can pick one or both. I immediately went to prospecting because I didn't have any money, and even when I had money, I still stuck to prospecting. So, and then did everything that was relatively low cost to free.
Yeah, my triangle's upside down because I'm really, really good at marketing,
Mhm.
but that's all passive.
Yeah,
And I need, I guess some of your marketing could be proactive because you're putting yourself out there, but as far as like the true lead gen in my mind of what I know now is more experienced realtor, that I need to do more prospecting versus marketing.
right. And with prospecting, it doesn't have to be with cold strangers. You can target market or target specific when you're making your calls. Like for example, my wife called me out on this. She's like, you're making all the easy calls. Okay, what do you mean? Well, you're calling all your friends from high school who can't afford to buy a house. Those are your easy calls. You're a chicken for not calling your mom's friends. Ooh, she got me though, right? Like I couldn't afford to buy a house. I'm calling all my buddies who just want to do like NBA fantasy league or whatever, and hang out over barbecue. But I was making contacts, right? But I wasn't getting deep into like a target market, right? When our SOI really delivered for us when we started calling my mom's friends and my mother-in-law's friends and like my aunt's friends and the people who were like essentially in their 40s to 50s who were in a target rich environment. They had bought a house in 2007, 8 or like post 2008. And now they saw some equity in 2015 and were like, cool, I have this condo and I always wanted to live in Northridge. Philip, what do you think? Or hey, I live in Reseda, I want to move up to Granada. And that's when our SOI started taking off because there was like this rich environment of, not rich, but hey, they qualified, they had their jobs, their incomes, they had this equity, they had goals, they wanted to move. Awesome. My buddies, I love them all. We were where we were at.
It's funny you say that because over the weekend, Sunday evening, I went into my mom's Facebook.
Ooh.
Like not through her, but through me,
Mhm.
but I went to her friends and then I put a script together and I just messaged all of them, most of them.
amazing.
And I'm like, you know what, get familiar with my face because I'm gonna actually get into my mom's contacts.
You know what, if one of
And I'm
my,
gonna call my mom's
if one of my
contacts.
kids' friends contacted me and said, I'm a realtor now, or I'm a plumber now, or I'm a, fill in the blank, I would so do business with them,
Yeah. That makes
because you want to support your kids.
Yeah. And I told my mom, I'm like, just an FYI, mom. I went to all your friends and I messaged all of them. And because they're mostly like Middle Eastern and Armenian like me, although for my own reasons, I kind of choose not to do a lot of business with them, but it's okay. It's okay because somebody will need, the assistance or the guidance that I want to provide. I went and I said I want to like support, my Armenian community, and I want to extend myself, and this way, and that was like the script that I used. So
And that's genius.
I was like, at least I'm sitting here, might as well, just do something that's gonna expose myself.
We were totally copying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I tagged my mom in practically every real estate related post. I'll tag her. She's practically tagging everything that it's family and real estate, but I'll tag her in that stuff, and people will say, congratulations, Norby. You know, 'cause they're seriously under the impression that she's doing the business with us, which in a sense she is, because we're borrowing her reputation and credibility with our ability to actually do real estate and getting into that door. It's kind of like Redfin, you know, Redfin has like their thing, but then their agents may not deliver the way that they promise. Then we've flipped the script in a way that, hey, totally all her credibility, all of her reputation. I know I'm putting in time and work and there's always room for improvement. We're not gonna mess up their deal or their finances. If anything, we're gonna enhance it and help them get to where they wanna be, even if it doesn't involve selling a house, right? So that's awesome. But you see, I carpet bomb to Christine's point, I might market all of her friends all of her friends through tagging her in posts, but I'm not taking the proactive approach of doing that.
But I'm gonna do that one too, and take your approach.
Yeah, we just have like a cool mastermind.
I feel like
That's
it's
awesome.
just that, like, instead of just sitting at once, although I have my schedule and I like put in the schedule after my son goes to bed, like 7 p.m. is his bedtime.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna do this, might as well. Cause when I find myself just scrolling, I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm not doing that, I'm not scrolling. No, cause I get lost in it, and then I'm just like looking at other people's life and I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yes.
That's it,
Use it for business.
yeah, exactly.
And
Dude.
on the marketing side, I have to say, I've been doing this for a long time. There are so many people who want to put their hands in your pockets. I don't pay for anything pretty much. I pay for my CRM.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
one other thing I started as an experiment, but we'll see how it goes. But otherwise, I pay for nothing.
Yeah.
I don't need
agree.
to.
There's so many ways we could like, well, for now, for me, I don't have money coming in yet, and I don't wanna invest other money for now, or, you know, whatever it is. And I'm like, there's so many ways that I can market myself,
1000%.
and I'm gonna actually take advantage of that for now.
Including things like giving them gifts, giving clients gifts. I always thought, I mean, yeah, it's really nice, but they come back to me because they like the service that they got, you know, I don't need to give them a gift.
Yeah, there's different ways. I mean, there's so many ways. I mean, we invested eventually in Cutco, and even then it was like not a gift that I would like to give, but you know, we've had people, believe it or not, call us back because of the knife. You know, I totally lost contact with them, and we've had now 4 examples of people coming back like, hey, Philip, we eventually found you on Google, but we had your knife. And we weren't sure about your phone number, we weren't sure if you were still doing the business. And it was like the old knives too, where it said Norby and Philip. So that was my mom and I when we first started, and then we flipped it to, you know, Team La Familia eventually. Or Philip and Monica, and now it's Team La Familia, so it's kind of all out there. Anywho, that was awesome.
Whatever works.
Yeah, there you go. We'll blast through this portion a little bit. Database container that holds the information of your leads and contacts. A smart database data bank allows you to have planned and meaningful communication with your database. I practically live off of that with KW Command. It's just an auto window that I have open when I log in. Not gonna dive deep into that right now, but whatever database you're using, just allow it to do its part with you. Even Brittany, you guys leverage the heck out of Josh even more, like call them, text them, email them, have
I've been
them.
sending them contacts, but I need to figure out how to do the email blast and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Ah.
Would he do that for me, or?
He'll
would
do that for you
Would
too.
he set it up and then he, I don't know.
He'll do it for you. You just send them the messaging and then he'll actually
Well, like
blast
send
it.
them all the info we want to put on there.
And he'll blast it right through, and then you should get all of your replies back on your whatever email your lead email is, if it's at KW or at Gmail, it'll pop up in your inbox with all the replies. Yeah, so he'll like once a month, he'll blast for us, and then we'll get all the replies on our Gmail account. And so it's like the Gmail and then the BCC is like the KW account that we use. But everything will go to our Gmail, and then I can see the replies. Some people are like, oh, take them off the list. I just forward them over to Josh, hey, take them off the email list.
We got
And then,
Chris that one.
Yeah.
Never give you my effing, take me off your effing list.
Yeah. Yeah,
Really, all right.
real special person actually replied to an email.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh man, you take your email seriously. I just hit spam. It's like if someone's like saying, hey, pay this, you know,
Like the spam.
Yeah, scam, like, I'll pay this, whatever,
Just
you know, your
unsubscribe,
order's in.
buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unsubscribe,
Yeah.
scam, you know, all good.
Yeah.
My aunt told me to take me off your list, I'm like, it's me. I met you. It's like, yeah, but I want your other emails, not this email, like, oh,
Aw,
so it's
sweet.
content, okay. That was fun, and she refers to a lot of people, so that's, oh man. Leads are people who you've earned the right to at least have a one-way conversation with. So that, you know, there's a meaningful purpose, like someone from scouting and talks to me about selling their house, he's a lead. Right, we have our normal ecosystem conversation is scouting, beer, life, right? Nothing about real estate. He's a lead now because he's like, hey, Tamara and I are thinking of selling our house, buying in Gordon Hills. Love for you to come by, give us some tips. Awesome, great. Contacts are people you've had a two-way conversation with, whom you've established a value-based relationship with. Those are past clients, those are your core group of people. There's even people that you haven't really done business with, who are just now contacts that you're following up with on a consistent basis. They might not make your pipeline where you're like, oh, Philip will one day sell. No, Philip is like locked in with his home, with his young kids. They're gonna be there for the long haul. But you know what? He takes my call. And when he has questions about real estate, he calls me, right? It's like a two-way conversation there. There's some people, a lot of people in our pipeline where they're not really contacts in that sense. So they really are just lead follow-up aspect, and we get to know them through that process. But the basis of our relationship really is like, hey, they have a home they want to sell. It's a matter of obstacles and timing. Okay, let's find solutions for those obstacles that they're encountering, or how can we help make this easier for them, right? Relationship management, relationships must be attended to, cared for, and cultivated. I want to take a moment here real quickly. What are some of your thoughts when it comes to attending to, cared for, and cultivating those relationships?
I would say it's a dance. That's how I look at it, because it depends on the relationship. And you've got to figure out how much is too much and how much is not enough. And
Yes.
it's not the same with every person and every relationship.
Right. 1000% agree. I mean, like, to my point about my aunt asking us to take her off the list type of thing, it's exactly that. You know, she's really good with just texting me, hey, Philip, my friend wants to buy a house. Awesome. You know, just don't send me an email, right? Or just send me the stuff about home values or whatever. 5 love languages, you know, you kind of think of sometimes it's just timing, or sometimes it's gifts, sometimes it's service. There's different aspects when we're communicating with those leads and contacts within that database. Types of communication, anywhere from a handwritten card all the way to a phone call, email, text message, face-to-face, KW app. There's a really good book. They're not going to talk about it here, but it's called The 7 Levels of Communication. At the very top of that communication pyramid is one-on-one, meeting with someone face-to-face, ultimate form of communication. Very bottom of that list is general advertising. Throw out a bunch of advertisements out there. That's like a glance, off it goes. In between it goes advertising, emails, text messaging, right? Direct messaging. The middle is a handwritten note. Then it goes into a phone call, big event, seminar, or an event party you invite them to, one-on-one contact. You know, that would be the highest impact. Is middle in between is going to be the high impact is a phone call, big event that you invite them to, one-on-one meeting. Low impact, yet a lot of information would just be all the advertising, text messaging before that. And again, I know the text messaging aspect makes us a ton of money too. I'm not taking away from that, but the impact level is slightly lower than a phone call. You know, all things considered. Because eventually we have to talk to them, right? Secure an agreement or whatever it is. Client referral loop, your database will generate leads in the form of new, repeat, or referral business. New business, right off the bat, you're constantly, maybe you get an ad on your Facebook or Instagram or on the sign call, whatever it is, from your marketing efforts. You get repeat clients. We're starting to see some of that the last few years with clients we helped in 15 who are now selling or now sold in 19, 20, 21, and now coming up in 22. So going back, especially Cindy's been around in the business for a while. So she went back and called clients from, fill in the blank date, like all of a sudden there are now kids and grandkids who might be in the market to refinance, buy, invest, do different things or leverage financing.
I'm realizing that I need to go back into my database and look deeper for the kids and for the additional properties, for the 1031s and all that other stuff. Because initially, I didn't dig that deep.
You know something, you can build a company with all of your former B of A loan officers. You get all of the loan officers together, you guys should have more leads than OpCity and more leads than Zillow and more leads than Redfin. Not because people are searching homes, but the fact is you did a loan for my mom in 1992. She's bought and sold, say, 6 homes in that time frame in the last nearly 30 years. Okay, well, if she's done all that and now she's got 2 grown kids, a couple, extended market, if you had a way to farm that 30-year database, and then you farmed, John's 30-year database, and you farmed Steve's 30-year database, you've done 2 things. You created now business for yourself, and then you create this referral business. I mean, what do we pay guys? OpCity, 35%? 35? What if you did it for 25? And that company took 25% of every real estate deal done through that referral system, and you took 100% of the loan.
Yeah.
And then hell, you referred the loan out because now you just created a passive income stream for yourself. And that's what our databases are. When we look at our phones, mine's charging, but I hate seeing it yellow. This bad boy is like 1,500 people or whatever the number is. Your database might be 2,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 on that phone. If we really converted that, we would be our own OpCity, our own Zillow, in terms of lead generating from a pool of people that actually have us number 1 or 2 in mind. Cut out that middleman. Or what a thought, what if we referred the business out and we took back the 35% on a passive basis? Or, hey, the easy stuff, mom, sister, cousin, brother, I'll slam dunk those deals. Anyone else I'll refer out. It's just some thought. It's not part of the program, but definitely there. Lead generation never ends, is best when time block determines the size of your business. So it's not like how many people you're cold calling or whatever, it's like how many people are you touching base with on your database? Who are you adding? How are you growing? And guys, it doesn't take all day. Time block 4 hours, time block an hour and a half, time block 3 hours. Get it done, go hiking. That's what I think though. If I didn't have the kids, I'd probably go hiking. On that note. I gotta remember that when we don't have them anymore, when they're out doing other things, it's like, oh, okay, we gotta be prepared. We should still have a 3 o'clock breakout time, all that fun stuff. Any ahas on that? All right. So I'm gonna blast through the next couple. I know Wednesdays we kind of time block at 2 hours, but at the same time, I want to be mindful of having extra time to make calls or whatnot.
Today's are 11:30,
Oh, it's 11.
the risk management class,
Oh, are you guys going to that in person or is it on Zoom?
it's on Zoom.
Oh, cool. We'll be done like 15.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me. Is that Jeff
Yeah.
Bond?
Yes.
Awesome.
But I also want you to talk to Phil about it because he's got some insight on the whole scenario.
Oh, okay, it wasn't about that, but okay. I didn't.
If they call
Yay.
Rich.
I'm Rich, that's ever had in class.
Oh, okay. Got it. Oh, you're the reason why we have.
No, that's, hey, this is recorded.
I kid. I love Rich. My first interaction with him was, Philip, you've got 3 violations. This is the second day I signed up with Calabasas. Like literally, I thought it was, oh, it's Rich Messiah, must get a welcome email, right? And it was, oh, you gotta correct these violations. Like, what? It's a long story. But when you leave an office with active listings, it's a weird dance. All right, your sphere of influence, everybody, todos los personas, right? Or todas las personas. Categorizing your sphere, immediate family, friends, relatives, neighbors, past coworkers, all the way through even and including real estate agents and real estate services. I harp on that a lot for 2 reasons. One, you never know who you're gonna do a deal with. It's awesome to have a great relationship with the realtor community, whether you're volunteering at the board or just networking out and about at big events like NARET and ARIA, whether it's the Ventura County or North LA. Though I've been told the Ventura County one is way better. Veronica, high five. You're there, woo. And the fact that a lot of times, you know, the numbers are real. There are real estate agents who I met in 15 who are not real estate agents anymore. However, they reach out to me and say, hey, you know, I have a friend who's ready to buy a house. Do you think you can connect with them and help them? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Sandy. We'll definitely help them. Right. So it's just a matter of how you're building those relationships out. Either it's a relationship to help put deals together, or it's a relationship to help service their databases that they never really got to. And now their databases become part of your database. And there's a whole thing we can go into that. I think of number 7 for ED teachers, like holy cow, Park High School. Imagine all those parent relationships.
TAF, yeah, I
Yep.
reached out.
What's our TAF? There you go.
I reached out to someone to find out how to do a luncheon. Is it a luncheon? I forgot what we called it. Yeah.
Yeah, there you
a
go.
luncheon, but no one's responded yet. So
Uh,
I'll try again.
So we're working on some big events, some different things. And then this is something that helped me, number 8, like the worship club volunteers. We do a lot of that, especially because of the kids. So I'm very mindful of like not being the real estate salesperson as opposed to being the resourcing consultant, right? The same way I am in making my regular calls or receiving calls or whatever it is. Resourcing consultant, and you keep that in the forefront of your brain. I've added the word coach, resource consultant, and coach when it comes to their real estate and goals and just life in general. It will make it so much easier for you to be water wherever you go. Bruce Lee's, hey, water has no form or shape. It just takes you pour it into a cup, takes the form of a cup, pour it into a bowl, takes the form of a bowl. It's just flows, it's just constant, right? That will make so much of your SOI world way more like, oh, hey, Philip, I've heard through the grapevine, or I've heard you on the phone, you're a realtor, right? Like, oh yeah, totally. What can I help you with? Oh, I have this challenge. I'm inheriting a house, whatever it is. Now you kind of like the godfather or godmother in that sphere of influence. Categorizing your sphere of influence, build your SOI day by day. On that note, like Jessica reaching out to her mom's database, and now you're tagging everyone in command, mom's SOI. I literally have a tag that says mom's SOI, or sorry, Norby's SOI. That's my mom's name, Norby. So I have it as Norby's SOI. I know if I tap that button and search, like 200 people come up, but those are her closest friends, allies, all that stuff. And you can do that day-wise. It doesn't have to be all done in one day, unless you have Josh. You know, not necessarily to plug the team, but you message him, he'll just work for you all day.
Does he do that many in one day on it's time?
Yeah, he literally gets after it. We had asked him before if he wanted to work on day scheduling. He's like, no, I want to work on your guys' schedule. Awesome. So he's graveyard essentially. Josh is our virtual assistant.
I also recommend taking business calls wherever and whenever you can around other people. What I mean by that is, I can't tell you how many times I've been like taking a cab to the airport and I get a call and I'm talking about a loan. And then, of course, the cab driver starts saying, oh, you do loans? You know, I'm thinking about buying a house and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, it's like that stuff happens all the time.
Genius. Yeah, and you think about it, the dance, all the things that were around, you know, we can't help but not be on the phones. I'm not watching the kids the whole time. Like, you know, it really is opportunities where you can take a call with a client, walk them through certain things, and they actually hear that you're not a salesperson. You know, you're actually consulting them on really damn good advice on what they should do for their situation. And you always use the word depends. Like, hey, let me ask more questions. Like even our closest friends at scouting realize like, oh, Philip doesn't sell real estate. He actually like advises. We can actually see why this makes a ton of sense. You know, and there's other aspects of the genius. Bold law change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
True.
Can't stress that enough. So true. You know, you look at your kids like they're geniuses. Dang it, they're geniuses. You treat them like they're dummies.
Oh.
They're dummies.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I do that with my kids. I'm just saying, well, okay, we're in scouting. The parents who really like help their kids elevate, those kids perform. The kids who you would think physically they can climb over walls, do different things, their parents truly, you can sense it, and you can see how they interact. They look at them like dummies, they perform like dummies. It's a sad truth. You know, Monica's a den leader, and she gets more from those kids in like that 35-40 minute span because she genuinely believes in them. And she looks at them like, hey, you guys are studs and you guys can do this. And somehow they do it. And we don't ask them to do easy things. You know, they're really getting after it. But then when they're around like their parents, you can see like, hey, they're getting, you know, I'm not getting into it, but it works on kids, it works on adults, it works on us, our minds, and the stuff that we do. Crazy as that. Expanding your SOI, add more personal information to your SOI contacts. The more you know of someone, the more you can connect with them, right? Birthday celebrations. I have our virtual assistant, you know, I haven't had him go through my Facebook yet. I feel weird of him doing that. Maybe I'll just give him like a 1-day access. He can go through it, but I'll forward to him everyone's birthday when it comes up. He updates it, and then going forward, when there's a birthday, he sends them a birthday card, you know, from me, but it goes to them directly, right? And that sounds like a little impersonal, but after a while, writing the birthday card myself the month before, I figured that was one thing I could delegate to a virtual assistant, and that's what we started doing. How do you find out? Just ask, or if you're like me, stalk them on Facebook, go to About, see what the birthdays are, and update it. That's just me, I'm just stalking.
You know, on the birthday thing, I'll never forget when we were kids.
Mhm.
Every year we'd get a card from my father's insurance agent,
That's so cool.
Tom Dombrow. I even know his freaking name, you know, every single year. And it's like, we'd get it and we'd be like, yeah, you know, here's Tom Dombrow's card, and throw it away. But, you know, we expected it after a while, and it wouldn't be the same if we didn't get it, you know? So,
I'm writing that down right now, like contact kids' birthday cards.
yeah.
And it's the same when you call like your data, your sphere of influence, and then if you continuously make those calls, even to say like, oh, hey, how are you? You know, I just wanna be, you know, proactive and, you know, keeping in touch with my contacts in my phone, and I just wanna say hi like every month or something. Then when you stop, it's like, they're like, what the, they like
Yeah.
that, even though they don't share with some people,
Right.
they like it.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
I had a mentor that told me to sing happy birthday to him, because when you were a kid, you loved it. And then when you grow up, you really don't get that anymore. So it was like, send a video saying happy birthday.
Yeah.
That's what Alice knows.
Danny Garrido and Jamie Angel were sending like video messages on
Yeah.
our birthdays, which I thought was kind of cool.
Well, that's-
And Danny was the first one to like actually, you know, reach out to my wife on her birthday. You know, usually it's nobody like from the real estate world or office or anything like that would reach out to her. He was the first one a couple years back before she was really like getting involved. So he read the post and he knew that, hey, you know, Monica, this person, Monica's wife really plays a big role in all their decision making. So he started like sending her those birthday video text messages and all that fun stuff. So that's like taking it another step in that direction. Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. I mean, I've done it with a few people, but they have to be close. But again, that's my personality.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of weird on probably think I'm hanging on or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, strengthen casual connections. That's kind of on the note of what Cindy was talking about earlier. Maybe not just about making calls around certain things, but we're in these environments anyway. We have these opportunities to get to know these people. Join groups that will connect you with people with similar interests and values. Like for us, it's kids, but if we didn't have the kids, what would we be into, right? Shooting guns, we've talked about that before, hiking, you know, tennis group, I don't think tennis, but golf, whatever it is that fills you up, be around like-minded people in that regard.
And Meetup is great.
Oh yeah, meetup.com, absolutely. My first meetup group was called the Free Business Tips is what it was called. We met at the Experiencing the Tattoo Parlor in Mission Hills. And that was phenomenal. It was like like-minded people and entrepreneurs, people creating and selling soap, to coaching advice, to real estate, to like all sorts of different things. And guess what? I helped people in that group sell their property, buy property. We're still in great contact with those people. We're still referring each other businesses and our business and contacts. It's still an ongoing thing. And on that note, referrals, building your SOI through referrals, gather your leads from your sphere of influence. I'm building my business on people I know and the people they know. Do you know of anyone from friends, family, work, or your neighborhood or a group that you belong to is thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I'd be pleased to be a resource for them. Or if you hear of someone with a real estate need, will you keep me in mind and let me know right away? Now, this is great for your core group of people. Like, I wouldn't say this to like the first time I'm calling somebody, you know, like defrosting a relationship type of thing. But if they're in my top 25, I'm having this conversation. If they're a past client of mine, I'm having this conversation. If there's someone I already give money to, a strategic partner, vendor, affiliate, I'm having this conversation with them, right? Especially if I pay them already. We gotta blow through ahas, guys, sorry about that. Lead generation best practices, track your lead sources, audit your lead sources, diversify your database, and be consistent. How do you know when it's time to like hire somebody or add a new lead generation pillar that you have to pay for? You gotta track where your leads are coming from. You know, people are like, well, Philip, why did you stop making cold calls? Because the moment I started tracking where all the business was coming from, and that 90% of the easy business, the less heartache, the less problems was coming from a referral or direct contact from my database, I said, screw it, I'm not dealing with the cold calls anymore. This is way too erratic in terms of how much activity I need to put in order to get so many leads and so much business out of it, that I thought, man, what if I just doubled or tripled down on this end, and now I don't have to worry about not picking up my kids from school every day of the week. That was like a super easy example, that's where some of that came from. It didn't really happen until essentially number two, like when I started auditing our lead sources and saying, hey, I wrote out 10 different lead generation pillars, including farming, all this stuff. Half of it I never did. For sale by owners, expireds. I get a list, I call them, go back to cold calling, whatever it was. So I realized I had to go a little bit smaller and keep that focus. When I went to my core, my mom, my aunt, my cousins, family, friends, I was able to get leads right away. Even with my high school buddies who were not in the market of buying or selling, what dawned on me when I went back to calling them was they got parents who own homes, who may need to downsize, may need to do different things. They have siblings who are further along in their career path at the time. And they were, hey, if I'm gonna call them and we're gonna have a meaningful relationship, I'm gonna ask about the people in their spheres, their centers of influence, right? And then be consistent with it. Diversify your database, all that we spoke about. This is the most important among everything else that was also most important, but prepare your mindset practice call list. You know, the office is a genius with having forward mindset or the morning mindset call, you know, because it's about you. It's about getting your mind right. Practice, whether that's on the Zoom call or by yourself or with a teammate on the phone in person, and then start calling your list, right? And maybe that prep list, I do mine in the morning, sometimes the night before, I might jot down a couple names. I call that my first and 10, and then boom, go right into that. Take action, having your conversations, and then one of those hours. So when we say time block for 4 hours, it's not 4 hours of calls and then having to take time to set up, right? Really, that first hour is setting up. It's not even making calls. Set up your calendar, set up your list to call. Might include practice, right? But you're doing your prep. Your next hour is really, or the next 2 hours are calls. Like you're calling, you're working through that list. You're calling your top 25, maybe your top 5 of the day or top 10 of the day. Then you're working through your lead follow-up. You're working through contacting the database you haven't called before. Maybe you're DMing 25 people at a time on Facebook. You're doing a variety of different things. That last hour is exactly this, maintenance. You know, cleaning up, making sure you're adding the notes, making sure you're adding the birthdays. It sounds really geeky, but once you kind of get those notes in there and you have them at least on a smart plan for a quarterly call, then the next time you call it, you just have to look at your note and say, hey, last time I spoke with Philip, he was thinking about, you know, cashing out some money and buying an Airbnb. Let me see what he's been up to. And I might update you and say, yeah, you know, got the HELOC done and now we're thinking of doing XYZ, what do you think? Right? And that is just an ongoing build out of the relationship there. Battle distractions, protect your time block, build a bunker wherever you're making the calls, wherever home, here at the office, have a space where, hey, this is my zone. If you're in the open area, I mean, I tend to just be a little, you know, open with where I make my calls. My bunker is pacing. People know I'm on the phone when I have the earphones on and I'm walking around the building, right? That's kind of like my bunker. Store provisions, have snacks, so you're not walking down to Rite Aid to take a break. And yeah, so Kurt, he would see me like walk down the route, so they didn't have any food here at the office at the time. So I'd walk down the route. So that was such a distraction for me, because I'd go there, eat, then come back, as opposed to just like, hey, hammer out the calls instead of trying to make calls with all that background noise. So that's my failure. And that was the rookie failure from a veteran, right? So, and I'm not really a veteran. Sweep for minds, like know in advance when you're preparing, for me, it's gonna be escrows. Like, okay, the biggest minefield for me is like having live escrows where I know there's some challenges. How do we sweep for minds in an escrow is, hey, let them know, like, hey, but most of our answers will come in around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, waiting for the buyers to get back to me. And then we can hold the day off until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever that time is for us to follow up with our deals. And enlist support. You might want an accountability partner, or if you're sweeping for minds, like, you know, we have kids. My mother-in-law, having her to help watch the kids for that first half of the day, while Monica's able to be here, that's enlisting help. We'll end it there and we'll stop share and stop recording. Any ahas before we jump into Jeff Kahn's risk management class?
Time blocking.
Time blocking, what else?
This last thing you just shared too.
Sweeping for minds.
I mean, the one before, sorry, the time blocking and the calls and the mindset.
Nice.
I was gonna say something that you said about